1981 to 86, so to give people a little timeline. And I was the evening guy. I did the rock jock evening show from 7 to midnight, Monday to Friday. But what I was going to get at is there was a little booth, much smaller than this, which had a table and reel-to-reels and stuff, and we would do remotes with that. And then there was an actual little trailer that would get pulled somewhere, and you would plant it, and reel-to-reel machines, and there was a mixing board and stuff. But all the commercials had to be pre-recorded onto reel-to-reel. And one of my jobs in the evening shift, if I wasn't doing the remote, because Kyle Anderson was doing a lot of the remotes, as was Alan Tom at the time. So again, for some old-timers, gives you a bit of the timeline when I was there. Anyway, whoever was on remotes, I would get a photocopy of the program log for that shift. And my job in the evenings, along with my evening show, was to record all the commercials in certain blocks so the guys would follow it when they're on remotes, and they would just click the reel-to-reel machine and the ads would run as if they were actually there. It was very old school now that I look at it, but you know, at the time, that's what we did. We improvised. And you know, it's amazing. You know, you and I have talked about programs like Audacity, you know, for audio clips and stuff. And I remember the old days, and you probably do too, using reel-to-reels and razor blades and tape, and it was, man, things are so different. I wish if we had half of this stuff when I was in radio, I probably would have stayed in the business.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because now there's not as many people doing it, and they don't produce anything. It's very different the way it is.
Well, also you have, for lack of a better explanation, you don't have a lot of independent radio stations anymore either, so you know the whole thing has become corporate, and it's, you know, the bottom line. And I understand that from a business point of view, but personality has gotten lost, and a lot of the other character that was there.
Yeah, and what's wrong with having a conversation on air? Right? That's the whole idea. I think it's supposed to be the one-to-one part of it.
Well, that was what I was told when I got into the business. I entered the radio business in 1978, right out of high school in Kelowna, as it turns out. And Nick Frost was the guy who actually gave me my very first kick at the cat. And yeah, that was the stuff that I was told. Doug Johnson was the program director at Chim FM when I was there. And he kept saying, look, you know, you have to, like, you know, sometimes put a picture of a family member or something on the control board, so you have, to have that one-to-one conversational thing. Because, you know, you hear people who watch movies and stuff, and you see someone doing a radio skit or something, and they do the old, you know, the fake radio voice, and hey, the hit shows keep on coming, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, that is, you know, maybe that's the stereotypical concept, but that wasn't the style that we followed when we were in the business.
Yeah, it's so different. Do you know what I always remember my first times in radio was when something came over the newswire. If you missed it, you missed it. And the thing was, and it would buzz or it would beep if there was an important story, but if you missed it, it was gone.
And you know, that's a really good example too, because we used to have a teletype machine in both Penticton and Kelowna when I worked in Kelowna. Again, I'm talking late 70s, early 80s, and you're right, it was rip and read sometimes, and the terminology is simple as you would understand it. You just rip the hourly report off of the teletype machine, run into the control room, because invariably there was no news guy working the shift, the late shift, and you know, sit down and you'd read the news, poof, right off of there, and sometimes you didn't even have enough time to pre-read it, and yeah, you would get the hourly report, and if you missed a big item, you missed it.
Yeah, isn't that something too when you're talking about rip and read it? Of course, in broadcasting school, you know, they tell everybody, well, you know, proofread before you hit the air. There's this big procedure.
Yeah.
When you're out in the real world, when do you have time to do that? You know, when can you proofread?
Well, exactly, and I mean, you know, even when, you know, I do, as you said, the play-by-play for the posse, you know, I get a list of names I download from the internet, and I do my little homework, you know, that takes me some time before the game starts, and you got names, and it's like, oh my goodness, you know, how do I pronounce some of these names? And I always apologize if I butcher a name, but every now and again, because of the technology, we have Twitter, every now and again someone will tweet and say, just so you know, the pronunciation of this name is, and it's like, oh, I'm so thankful that we have those things available.
That's one thing, you hate saying someone's name wrong.
It's their name.
Yeah, it bothers the people listening, and they know. Believe me, it bothers the host probably more.
Yeah, it totally, and I mean, we're lucky we have names that are easy to pronounce. But, you know, I mean, like Walker, how hard is that to say? You know, I mean, it's spelled the way it sounds. You know, Elliott, I mean, how hard is that to say, right?
We've always said in radio, too, why is everyone that plays tennis have a hard name? It seems like that's the hardest sport to get the names out of. I don't know why.
The names I love the most, and I'm certainly not trying to be stereotypical, but I love when Grand Forks comes to Princeton, and it's like once a year because there's all sorts of particular names, a particular nationality that are so easy to pronounce, right? And it's like, oh, I'm so glad they're there.
Yeah, of course, the heavy Russian population.
Yes.
That's really neat. I want to talk about Outback Jackson a little bit about what's happening with the posse. Yeah, we're going to talk to about them here in just a moment. We'll talk about them too. Here's Leanne Rhymes on SoCountry.ca.